الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
أعوذ بالله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمد. Welcome to Islam Today. I am your host, Qasim Rashad, and we began by opening with the greetings, the universal greetings of Assalamu Alaikum, which we extend to all of our Muslim and non-Muslim family, friends, and those in the listening audience of WURD. Today is Saturday, April the 8th. It is also the 26th of Ramadan, going into the 27th evening of Ramadan, which is one of the possible odd nights of the last 10 days of Ramadan. So get to the masjid, inshallah, if you can. Pray in your homes if you can, and try to catch the blessings of Laylatul Qadr. At United Muslim Masjid with Philadelphia Masjid and the Imam Muslim Family Center, we will be recognizing or hosting the Eid prayer at the Philadelphia Masjid either on April the 12th or April the 13th, starting with the prayer at 8 a.m. If it is raining, we will be indoors. If it is a beautiful day, inshallah, we pray that it is. We will be in the park adjacent to the masjid. The khatib will be our beloved brother Imam Hanif Faust, who is the resident imam for United Muslim Masjid. So again, we will be praying either the 12th or the 13th. A message will come out. If you want to, you can go to text UMM News to 313131, and just the phrase UMM News to that short key, and you will be enrolled in our text messaging. And on Tuesday, I believe which should be the 11th, we will make an announcement whether the moon has been sighted or whether it has not been sighted. And as you know, for the Muslims, we count 29 days for a lunar month. And if there's no moon sighted, then we go to 30 days. Also, our dear brother Jihad has requested that we get fundraising, do fundraising for our radio program. This is the Living Islam Today, not the Islam Today radio program, just a slight difference. This is Living Islam Today, and the Cash App is $ Islam Radio. So if you want to support our program and, so that we can bring these shows to you, we're almost like the Muslim public broadcasting here. So today we have a great show for you and a wonderful guest. The show is about a podcast. There is an NPR podcast called The Universal Title, and it talks about and explores and documents the journey, the spiritual journey of Cassius Clay to Muhammad Ali, and the overall journey that our brother Muhammad Ali took spiritually. That is a side that is not really reported on much. we do know in the media, and we do know as Muslims, and we do know as African Americans, that on that fateful night in 1964, when he defeated Sonny Liston, the next day he came out and he said in a braggadocious manner, I am now a member of the Nation of Islam. And it was really repudiated by a lot of not only white folk, but even some black folk and many of the mainstream black Christian folk. So today, to talk about that, and one of the hosts, or the host of the podcast, is our brother Preacher Moss, who is the founder of Allah Made Me Funny, the official Muslim comedy tour. He is a long-standing veteran of the stand-up game. His accomplishments cover the scope of performing with jazz greats to touring with some of the top comedians over the last 15 years. His career spans an experience of international touring, lectures, activism on the issues of race, poverty, education, and religion. Preacher Moss is more than a comedian, however. He is the quintessential communicator of our time. The premier voice on issues facing Muslims and Americans, Preacher Moss is undeniably the poor righteous teacher on a mission. His experiences as a comedian, writer, lecturer, Muslim, African American, and a poor righteous teacher are the sum of all his parts. Ultimately, he is the storyteller on the corner that shares the good news and sometimes the bad news, but always with sincerity. He is a comedian of the times, past, present, and future. He has also recently gotten his master's degree in Islamic education from the Bayan Institute, and so he's a sheikh. So a comedian sheikh. Huh? Throughout Islamic history, there's been all types of scholars, scientists, explorers, and what have you. And now we have, in the rare form, a comedian scholar. And without further ado, I want to say assalamu alaikum to our brother Preacher Moss. How are you, brother?
Wa alaikum assalam rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. How you doing, beloved?
I'm good, man. Glad to see you. Also, our brother Preacher Moss is also a writer, has been a writer for George Lopez, for Darrell Hammond, and for the Wayans brothers as well. And so his comedic talents are not just stand-up, but he's also a recognized comedy writer in television and the movies as well. Am I correct?
Yes, sir. Alhamdulillah. All praises due to Allah. Yes, sir.
Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. So how did you get picked to be, and also his undergraduate, see, I gotta go. Your undergraduate is in broadcast journalism from Marquette University.
Yes.
And when I'm listening to this podcast, and I know you personally, and I've seen your stand-up. I've had interactions with you. I just never recognized you or thought of you as the voice. And I'm listening to this voiceover because it's a podcast. It's on NPR. It's not a video broadcast, but it's an audio podcast. And that voice is so distinct, so distinguished, and it's so on the point. Is that something that you kind of like worked on through the years, or is it something that you learned as you majored in broadcast journalism? How did that come about?
You know what, man? For 4 years when I was in college, I had my own radio show.
Really?
At Marquette University Radio. It's called WMUR.
Okay.
So I had an early morning Sunday show, like some ridiculous time, like 7 in the morning. I took it because that was what was available. And what you learned was radio is so much about relationships. Like media these days is not so much about relationships. It's about developing position or understanding with your audience because you want to sell them something or you want to sell them a viewpoint. Back then, man, it was so important. And we grew up with radio guys. You know, I'm a big fan of Petey Green.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I grew up listening to Petey Green on the radio.
Okay, I've heard Petey.
So I mean, I love Petey Green, and the Quiet Storm, Melvin Lindsey. So you grew up with those guys. You wanted them, and you know, just the Motown days. I mean, who could? Melvin Frank with that voice, that bass voice. So you grew up around radio personalities. They don't really have that now. More so, it's like because radio is very automated right now. So you work within the commercials and the music's already selected. Back then, at my own radio show, I would select the music.
Great, great.
You
So
bring your crates of records.
you're really dating yourself now.
That's right. We didn't have CDs, brother. We didn't have CDs.
If you said CDs, you'd still be dating yourself.
I know. We had tapes and albums.
All right. So this podcast, first of all, what is it's called the Universal Title.
The Universal Title, yes.
Muhammad Ali's Spiritual Journey. How did they come up with that? What does that mean, the Universal Title?
Well, Muhammad Ali has always spoken about being heavyweight championship of the world in terms of a boxing physical type of thing. But early on in his career, he begins to see where boxing and his religion transcend a lot of that. Mm-hmm. And universal titles being able to connect with people that I imagine somebody knows about you before they meet you. Mm-hmm. They've developed, and I'm talking about it in a good way, they develop an understanding from what they read in the press clippings. And he understands, as they go into episode 5 and 6, that he begins to understand that I have all this opportunity through my fame and notoriety. I need to do good with it. I need to figure out how to do good with it, mm-hmm. how to affect the world, have positive change, because he literally talks about his own mortality. How much time do I have to do to affect good in the world, as opposed to the bad things I've done? Mm-hmm. And that's a heavy thing, man.
Now, Cassius Clay grew up in Virginia Street Baptist Church in Louisville, Kentucky. That's where he went to Sunday school, where he went to church, but he wasn't the most devout.
I think it was Olivet.
Olivet? Okay. But he wasn't the most devout, but he still went because his mother, Mama Bird, required the children to attend Sunday school and to attend church. And he had a devout respect for his mother as well, but he would ask his mother questions like, why is Jesus white? And why are the angels white? And I think there was one YouTube documentary where he says, well, I know why the angels are white and you don't see the black angels because the black angels are in the kitchen preparing the milk and the honey for the white. Right. So he was always questioning his position and his role and our people's position in Christianity. And he felt that the church didn't do some things that he felt they should have.
Well, I think the thing is, there's a part in the first podcast where they talk about his mom, but they talk about his father who used to paint all these beautiful murals in the churches around Louisville. Mm-hmm. And I think in that space, being that close to I want to say religiosity at that time, he looks around and he says, wait a minute, why are we not afforded the same opportunities that this group of people are having? We're all praying on the same day. It's all the same religion. And I think what happens is he does basically a efficacy assessment of how well religion works for solving social problems. Mm-hmm. And he looks at Christianity at the time and he goes, it's not necessarily moving the meter against Jim Crow and segregation.
Right.
But even more so, it's not really having the conversation that needs to be had. You know, because there's a thing about we feel a certain way, but if you feel a certain way in a group and you're not speaking it to the people in power, then it's just your conversation. He wasn't that guy. You know, so even when he beat Sonny Liston, he was already Muslim.
Right.
But he's like, let me go forward and do these things. You know, some of the things he did in the Nation of Islam, a lot of people don't realize he actually went against the advice of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Mm-hmm. He was advised to go ahead and go into the army. Mm. Give him a cupcake deal.
Okay.
You
Yeah,
know,
they were like Elvis.
they would give him a cupcake deal. You're the champion, Dad.
The Dog and Pony Show.
And he said no. He said no. He said I'd be hypocritical. He says this. Our religion says this. I'm holding my own feet to the fire about this is what the religion. And yeah, it irked people because in that space,
it was a conscientious objective as well. In all fairness.
But he's saying why can't I be?
Right.
You know, Elijah Muhammad, he wasn't the heavyweight champion of the world. He didn't have that space in notoriety. Right. Muhammad Ali does, and he makes a decision where he says, I'm not going to do that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I love this religion this much, I'm not going to do that. I don't care if they take the money, and you know how some folks, he don't care about the money. he said,
let's go back a little bit further, because Muhammad Ali goes to the Olympics, wins the gold medal, and then he comes back and he experiences Jim Crow and racism.
Can't eat in a restaurant in the front. Got to eat in the back. Nothing's changed for him.
Right.
You know, nothing's changed for him.
What did he do with that gold medal?
They say he threw it in the river.
Ohio. They say he chucked it in the Ohio River.
I think that scenario, at a really, really young age, it creates a psychological divide. Mm-hmm. And I thought that, he was amazing at compartmentalizing boxing and society. Right. Society and boxing. Fairness, equality. And the more he goes in his journey, he has more boxes to go into. By the end, he's like a superhero, man. He's flying around the world trying to get hostages released. He's offering himself up to Iranians to bring home U.S. Take me, let them go. The famed story about him going to Baghdad, mm-hmm. brokering a deal with Saddam Hussein. He's Muhammad Ali. Let him take the people. Mm. He's in a space where he's like, I'm trying. He goes in. He goes into Israel during a war, active fighting, trying to negotiate the release of American hostages, a librarian or something, a couple other people. But I'm like, these are the things. It's like, man, how are you living? This guy's walking a totally different path. Right.
So why did? Who's the group that produced this?
The group that produced it is a group called America Abroad Media. The president of America Abroad Media is a guy named Aaron Lobel, a Harvard guy. Got a doctorate, I think, in philosophy or something like that, a government, something like that. But they've been trying to get this thing off the ground for quite a number of years, from what I understand. I was bought in at the end, just so you know.
Oh, okay.
Story how I get bought in at the end. But I hear about the project, I think last year. And I'm like, wow. I was talking to Sister Precious Muhammad, who was they call her the history detective. She was the lead writer on doing all the research. And she was telling me about it. She and I were in another meeting consulting. And I was like, that's a crazy project, man. I'd love to be down with that. If you ever need anything, let me know. You know how you throw that out there.
Right.
You're not expecting to hear anything back, but the project runs into a snag. The snag is they don't have their narrator.
They never had a narrator?
They had one. Here's an interesting story. The original narrator was...
Denzel.
No. Better than that.
What?
Louis Gossett Jr.
Wow.
They had Fiddler. But he contracts COVID. And so his whole focus is, let me get over COVID. So he has to back out of the project. I get a call from Sister Precious. She goes, you still interested? I'm like, yeah, what's up? And she tells me the situation. And I'm like, she's like, let's give me a tape. I got to get an audition tape now. Mm-hmm. I don't have time to go to the studio. I'm on GarageBand like a mug, man. And I'm like, can you get me the sides? If you can get me the sides, I can make it work. So I get the script. I read the script. I send it to her. She goes, it sounds really good. I need you to go over this piece again. So it's almost like helping me cheat for a test.
Okay.
So I do the thing, then she submitted, and I get a call. I get a call from her saying you're going to get a call from the president of the company. He calls, and you know what it comes from? It's things like doing a shout out show that I've been doing for what 300. We did. I think we had 370 consecutive episodes.
So this podcast could be up for a Grammy.
Possibly.
It could be.
Possibly.
Right. So and it's on NPR. Tell our audience how they can tune in.
Okay.
Do they just Google Universal Title?
Well, then you can go to
that too, right?
You can go to universaltitle.com.
Okay.
It's on any place you get your podcast from. So you can go to Apple Podcasts.
Mm-hmm.
They have all of them.
Okay.
Spotify, they have all of them.
Okay.
Anchor, they have all of them.
Right. And tell us about some of it's fascinating. I binged it. I mean, they've got his childhood friends in there. They've got his kids in there. They've got people who walked with Cassius Clay.
Right.
Knew Cassius Marcellus Clay Jr. and Sr. and Mama Bird and the whole family. And so the authenticity, the genuineness of this whole podcast, it's really fascinating.
Well, you know what? It's interesting because I was talking to Brother Lobel, and I was like, you know what? The funny part, everybody has a Muhammad Ali story.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I met him when I was young. I think he was at the second march in Washington. I was like a little marshal. I met him in California.
Mm-hmm.
And I met his daughter in California when I was doing stand-up. She was a stand-up at the time, Maymay's oldest daughter.
Mm-hmm.
Stand-up. So we meet at the Ice House Comedy Club. But I'm like, everybody has a great Muhammad Ali story.
Right.
You know, I met the guy. Long story short, I go to a signing thing he was doing. I had another brother who used to do these paintings for Muhammad Ali. And the guy goes, you want to meet Muhammad Ali? I'm like, yeah. He says, grab the end of that painting. And we walk in before the signing starts. I'm like, this is crazy. We were just here talking. We found out we were Muslim. We prayed together. Now I'm in front of Muhammad Ali. I get in front of him, Q. He's a champ. And I lose my train of thought. I'm speechless. I'm a comedian. I'm speechless. And I don't want to come out with something stupid. I do anyway. And I go, Muhammad Ali, you're the champ. And he goes, I know.
And there are six episodes.
Yes.
I binged 4. 5 just came out a couple days ago, and 6 is coming out. The first one is called The Church of Mama Bird, The Cartoon and the Convert, A Message of Concern, and I'm a Bad Man. That's episode 4.
I'm a bad man.
And so it talks about not only his walk as a professional fighter, but also as an activist. Now, Muhammad Ali is not only he's the quintessential athlete activist. He was the first of the mold for which athletes that came after him modeled. So how do you think contemporary athletes, most notably, let's say a Colin Kaepernick, compare to Ali today?
Doesn't really compare.
Doesn't really compare.
I mean, in my opinion, I don't knock anybody's activism, and I'm going to throw this out here too, Q.
Mm-hmm.
You know, one of the things that Ali benefited from, you talk about the first athlete, activist, scholar. People forget Paul Robeson, man.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah.
People flash over Paul Robeson.
He was a star football player.
I mean, a star football player, actor.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he gave voice to political freedom. It cost him everything.
Mm-hmm.
It cost him everything.
Yeah.
It was his voice, and I often think I would love to be in a room and ask Ali about Paul Robeson.
Did he have an influence on
but I would tend to think so.
Mm-hmm.
He's around that era. I would tend to think so. And I think the other thing is Ali was really deliberate. He was really deliberate. You know, he had some spaces in his activism where he could have stepped back.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't. And I think the idea, the parallels of I'm going to live this religion, because you got to realize 64, 65, we're not, our community is not turning out in big numbers. We're not turning out offices. We're not,
Right.
we don't have, big libraries of fiqh and Bukhari Muslim. And
There was even a dichotomy to his transition. Now, to be fair, he converted from Christianity to the Nation of Islam, and then he converted to or transitioned into what they call the second resurrection, which would be Sunni Islam, Orthodox. He called it Orthodox Islam.
Yeah, true Islam.
So he followed. He came in the Nation of Islam under the tutelage of Captain Sam and Malcolm X. And the fascinating thing, you have Ayala Shabazz on there as well. She makes a great statement about, she asked him, did he love her father? But let's talk about that later. But he comes in, he comes from Christianity and Olivet Baptist Church, Mama Bird's Church, and he starts to have these, he's conflicted, right? About
yeah, well, they talk about, there's a part in one of the podcasts where he actually loses. He loses a fight in Chicago, and he comes back with the album, and the album is basically, I think it's Farrakhan's
White Man's Heaven is a Black Man's Hell.
Yeah. And she says that he plays it over and over and over and over and over.
Right,
and over.
right.
So there's two things. There's that album and the cartoon, because he speaks to his wife, second wife, and they bond around this cartoon about a slave trying to practice Islam down on the plantation.
He's practicing Islam on the plantation.
And they actually had me ad-lib part of that about
I think I heard that.
Just straight ad-lib. What do you think? And I'm like, okay, I look in your mind, you go, yeah, I could do that. But it's like, man, this is Muhammad Ali's joint. And, it's so funny. The story I was telling you about meeting Muhammad Ali, follow up, I see that he goes, give me $1. I give him $1. He does. I didn't know he did magic tricks. He's a magician. Yeah, and I'm sitting there now. I'm a broke teacher in California. I need that $1, Q. Oh, you want your $1 back? I'm like, yeah. And he reaches by my ear. He gives me $0.25. He goes, that's your $1 after taxes. Ironically, I meet his wife, Lonnie. I tell her I tell her about this story. She cracks up, and I go, "Hey, look, jokes are jokes, but
need that $1.
Yeah, your man's into me for 75 cents. Yeah, I need to know when I can get that." But it's so funny that all of that just circled around. It just lined up, man. It couldn't happen any better. It just lined up.
Going back to the milieu, he converts in '64 to the Nation of Islam, and then Honorable Elijah Muhammad passes away in 1975, the day before Savior's Day, right?
Yeah.
And so then what does Muhammad Ali do then?
Well, I mean, he embraces W.D. Muhammad in front of everybody.
Elijah Muhammad's son.
Yeah, he says this is a real thing. And I think it was extremely symbolic, but extremely powerful.
Right.
Because it's still a volatile thing. You know how it is when you have transitions in leadership. There's volatile things. People could start thinking differently when one leader is not there. It's almost like people don't necessarily follow your directions. At my funeral, I want so-and-so and so-and-so. Well, you're gone. They're going to do what they want to do. He made a point to do that. He made a point to really, I want to say in some regards, really cement this idea with the family, with Herbert Muhammad, because he still remained Ali's business manager for those years. So I mean, it was a really, really robust action to do at that time, because he could have said, "I'm the leader," and everybody would lay down.
Right.
He could have done.
We got to go to a commercial break, but I want to talk more about the most powerful episode to me was episode 1.
Okay.
In that it really talked about his deep faith. Well, he said he wasn't as religious, but he was devout to his mother. And if his mother told him Jesus is white and we're going to worship Jesus, then he did it. But that's where the conflict came, when he started to see white folks' inhumanity to black folks, and how could that be a white God? So they asked me to repeat it. It's the podcast is called The Universal Title. And go to wherever you get your podcast from, and you can get The Universal Title. I'm sure you can Google it as well. I'm Qasim Rashad. You're listening to Living Islam Today. We're talking with our guest, Sheikh Preacher Moss, who's also a comedian. He's a narrator. He does voiceovers. He's an actor. He knows George Lopez. He's the whole real deal. And the title is, again, Universal Title on any podcast, or Google it. We'll be right back, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.
Khadija Alderman's Funeral Service Incorporated. Don't let your family bear the burden of your final arrangements. Pre-arranged now.
We specialize in janazah services, traditional Christian services, natural burials, and theme services.
We provide repairs, domestic and international shipping, webcasting, and Skyping.
We service all denominations.
Our new location, 1924 West Hunting Park Avenue, Philadelphia 19140, 215-225-6600. Visit us at www.khadijasfuneralservice.com. That's www.khadijasfuneralsvc.com.
Like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter.
Khadija Alderman's Funeral Service, serving humanity with dignity.
Nearly 26% of Philadelphia's population lived below the poverty line in 2017. There's an increasing share of residents struggling to cover the most fundamental necessities. On a national level, Philadelphia was among the highest with poverty rates. Muslim Serve's mission is to develop and implement programs addressing food insecurity in collaboration with local community partners. Fundamentally, Muslim Serve strives to uplift those in our community by providing free, hot, nutritious meals. This is done by partnering with a variety of local community organizations and establishments with the goal to bring comfort to those in need and to relieve hunger in our area, no matter who they are. Veterans, students, people with disabilities, single parents, senior citizens, working class families, and children. Muslim Serve can be reached by phone at 833-486-4370 or by email at info@muslimserve.org. Learn more about Muslim Serve and what they do on their website, muslimserve.org, and on their social media pages, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Muslim Serve. You're listening to Living Islam Today, an Ahmed Media Company project on WURD Radio, 900 AM and 96.1 FM.
Assalamu alaikum, and welcome back to Living Islam Today, WURDradio.com, 900 AM, 96.1 FM on your radio dial. I am your host, Qasim Rashad. Today is Saturday, April the 8th on the Gregorian calendar, and it is the 26th of Ramadan on the Hijri calendar, the Muslim calendar. And in our studios with us, we have our brother Preacher Moss, who is the host of this dynamic podcast called The Universal Title, about Muhammad Ali's spiritual journey. On line one, we have our brother Rahim Islam, the proprietor of Cherish Restaurant. I want to give him a shout out. Him and his brother opened up a restaurant up in the Mount Airy section of Philadelphia. It is halal restaurant, and they are catering to the needs, the appetites of the Muslims in the city of Philadelphia. You got to pay them a visit. But I'm going to let Rahim tell us all about what he's got coming up. Rahim.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Brother Qasim. Hey, man, it's great to hear you, man. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
Hey, real quick, man, I can't talk about nothing besides Muhammad Ali right now. First of all, I got two quick Muhammad Ali stories. I was blessed to meet him when I was a young boy. They came to the Civic Center. I think it might have been one of my dad's last Founders Day we went to back in the day. And he was at the Civic Center. We met him. I met the Honorable Imam Muhammad. It was an amazing experience. He was just so beautiful. But the other story that I always think about me about Muhammad Ali is that my dad was talking to my dad one day. He said that he is behind Jesus Christ as the most recognized name in the world. Now, just imagine that for 1 second. A man from Louisville, Kentucky, with a 6th or 7th grade education, end up being the number 2 most recognized name in the world behind Jesus Christ. I mean, to me, that's like one of the, it's amazing to me. But y'all can talk about that. But I'm here to talk about Cherish. Right now, we're doing a Lord bless us to have to be able to feed 100 people today. We're giving out 100 free platters, and not like no free stuff. We're giving out real meals that I normally sell. These are packed meals. You know what I mean? Mac and cheese, rice and peas, green beans. Either getting jerk chicken, barbecue chicken, or grilled salmon. All of these are just like delicious platters to go. We want to make sure we try to get some blessings during the holy month of and try to feed as many Muslims as we can. So tonight at 6:30. 7060 Jefferson Avenue, Cherish Restaurant. We're going to be giving away 100 free meals, at least 100. I got about 120, honestly. But I got 100 free meals that I want to give away tonight starting at 6:30. And all you got to do to be here, just all you got to do to get one is just show up and, just ask for a platter. That's it. That's it.
And, brother, they ain't nobody had jerk chicken unless they had Raheem's jerk chicken.
Hey, Carson. Hey, hey, listen, too, I'm working on a vegan jerk for you, too, brother. I got something for you, brother.
Okay. I hear you.
I got something for you.
We're looking forward to it.
But listen, I don't want to take no more much of your time, man, because y'all got some more important stuff to talk about. But I just want to make sure I got it here, man. Make sure I want to feed as many Muslim friends as I possibly can. 7060 Jefferson Avenue. Please come through. Come grab a meal. Come grab 2 meals. You know what I mean? Just come grab through and come get something to eat, man. Break your fast with us today. And Costum, for real, man. It's you know how me and you go back, man. It's great seeing you back around, man. I love you, man. It's awesome, man. You know what I mean? Alhamdulillah.
Thank you, brother. I love you back.
All right, assalamu
alaikum. So we were talking about some of the things that influenced the young Cassius Clay and I think there's a preacher on the podcast One that admits, he says that we, meaning the black church, let him down.
Yeah.
And the Nation of Islam claimed him.
Yeah. It was all about the response.
Mm-hmm.
The response to injustice. And I think in that space, you weigh those. What are you talking about? You're talking about theology, if you will. I hate to go through theology. You talk about theology that's supposed to be liberation theology, and all we're doing is talk about it. And they're talking about a liberation theology that one has a name, one has a color, one is and it's designated a situation that you can see right away. Yeah, that's a huge attraction.
Theology was that God was a black man in the Nation of Islam. And
well, it was that, but it was also, it has, I want to say, like a spiritual revenue driver,
mm-hmm.
which is the idea that if we lift up the conditions of black people, we improve the conditions of black people, then you give rise to capacity and give rise to potential. And at that time, religion was not talking that way to black Americans, particularly during that time that Ali's coming up.
Right.
It's talking about a lack of bandwidth. You're subscribing to a lack of bandwidth and a lack of potential. Our relatives that grew up during that time, I was saying this earlier to a friend of mine on the call. I was like, those are the OGs of our community, the people who got up and did it every day, mm-hmm. and there were no laws to support them or protect them.
Mm-hmm.
You understand that the amount of ingenuity, courage to get up and know every day that this thing is not going to change for me. And then you begin looking forward to it'll change for other people. And that's what Ali does. But he does it in an international space. He begins to see that this thing about justice is it's internationally. And I really enjoy some of the stuff that, there's a book that was called, I think it's Blood Brothers,
mm-hmm.
About him and his relationship with Malcolm X.
Okay.
Malcolm X really defines this thing about you've got to get out of this country to understand the scope of oppression around the world.
Right.
You know, to have a fuller discussion to be able to help and service Black communities, you got to look at the rest of humanity. And that's what he does. That's why people, in my opinion, I'm like, that's why people love Muhammad Ali. I'm going to make the investment in humanity.
In the history, Muhammad Ali and Malcolm X were very close.
Yes.
But if you saw One Night in Miami.
Inaccurate.
Yeah. But it does get into the split that they had. And basically the split was over Malcolm leaving the Nation of Islam and Muhammad Ali just coming into the Nation of Islam. And he decided to stay with the Nation of Islam under the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And then he would later on say, and I think he said this to Ayala Shabazz, that that was a regretful thing he did. He regretted that.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of.
He regretted his break.
Well, there was a lot of space to that because, as the heavyweight champion of the world, he may have been able to survive a relationship with Malcolm X. Because they're two high-profile guys. A lot of people don't realize that Malcolm X makes this break when he realizes that he's not being silenced. They're not going to bring him back.
Right.
So he has to make a decision. That, and you know, of course, he has the theological and of course the emotional decision of facing some of the things that are going on within the Nation of Islam. You see, so in many regards, Muhammad Ali was Malcolm X's ticket back into the nation. Because at that point, you probably know this more than at that point, Honorable Elijah Muhammad did not support sports.
No.
He did not support Black people in sport.
Right.
So this whole thing, they thought Muhammad Ali was going to lose. They thought he was going to lose.
That's why they made him hold back on his announcement.
They thought he was going to lose. He wins.
Now, there's some irony here as well in terms of his juxtaposition within the Black church, because one of his most ardent supporters during his conscientious objection was Martin Luther King.
Yes.
Who denounced the Vietnam War, who was totally against the Vietnam War and supported his religious objection to that war. And let's make no bones about it, the reason why they rejected his conscientious objector status was because they said he did it because the Nation of Islam was not a religious group or a religion, it was a Black political group. And so therefore he didn't qualify as a conscientious objector under the religion clause.
Yeah, he didn't qualify, he didn't quantify. Because there were not enough people claiming conscientious objector status.
Right.
I mean, he fails his interest. He's 4F when he comes through.
He failed through. Yeah. He was dyslexic.
Hey, he's 4F when he comes through. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's like all of a sudden he stopped being dyslexic.
I don't know. You might know. Was he dyslexic?
I'm gonna say I don't know, but I would, as a former special education teacher, if someone gives you that designation, they're not doing you a favor. Right. I'm sure he didn't want people to know he was dyslexic. A very good comedian, a good friend of mine.
Was he doing what he needed to do?
You can be functional.
No, but was he doing what he needed to do to get out of it?
You mean out of the? No, he showed up. He shows up for the draft. They tell him no.
And when they called his name, he wouldn't answer, right?
Yeah, he's down in Houston. He says no, but at this point, he has religious enlightenment, or some semblance of it. So first time he's 4F. The second time he's like, but keep in mind, we earlier said that he could have gone on a cupcake tour.
He could have. They offered him that. They were the same thing they did.
Ray Robinson, Joe Louis, Elvis. He could have done a cupcake tour.
The Beatles.
He never did it. He said, no, this is a real war. Like he legitimately goes, this is a real war. People are dying. I'm a hypocrite. He said,
Right.
people over there, they look like me. They're dying. They don't have the opportunity.
He was facing 5 years,
Yeah,
and they were serious about incarcerating his butt.
man, he's doing plays. He's playing. You know, he's doing plays.
And he's preaching.
And
A
he's
lot of people don't know that Muhammad Ali was a minister in the Nation of Islam, and he preached. I mean, if you get some of the tapes, and there are some excerpts on the Universal Title of him preaching, and he's definitely a bona fide preacher, and he knows his stuff. He knows the lessons of the Nation of Islam. He knows morality. He knows the plight of his people, and he's putting it down. And so, at first, it goes all the way up to the Supreme Court.
Yeah, they had an HBO movie about it.
Yeah, they were talking about shutting it down. He was going to be 0-8. And then there was a clerk who read, and he read the autobiography of Malcolm X. He read certain books, and he knew that the Nation of Islam was a bona fide religion, and that he was a bona fide minister. Prior to that, all 9 Supreme Court justices, well, I think there were 8 at the time, all 8 of them had never read anything on the Nation of Islam, and they were making these pronouncements on his religiosity based on politics. They said, "Well, you're doing this for political reasons and for political gains." And then once this clerk who had read on Islam, he had read on the Nation of Islam, he had read the autobiography. I can't remember the guy's name. He's still alive, and you guys interviewed him in the podcast.
Well, I mean, that's, you know, this is I like to say this is the miracle and the nuance of Muhammad Ali. Mm-hmm. Meaning that he found ways to have you capitulate to a certain type of truth, but it wasn't his truth. The truth is over there. I just need to turn you a little bit so you can see it.
Right.
And here's the deal. Now it becomes your truth. I had nothing to do with it. It's your truth. What you do with it is your business.
Yeah, I think one of his famous quotes was when they said, "Well, now we do recognize that the Nation of Islam and Islam is a legitimate religion." That's what I was telling y'all all the time. You know? And so, but he did say, politically, he had no qualm or no argument with the Viet Cong, with the Vietnamese people. And his other political stance was, you know, and I think, you know, he might have did a lecture at a college, and the kids at college, he said, you know, white folks were coming at him for his conscientious objecting, calling him a coward and so on and so forth. And his response was fire, right?
Yeah, I mean, all of it. I mean, I'm trying to remember exactly what that response was. Do you know what it was?
He was saying, "You white boys want me to go over there and fight for you all, but I can't. Just here in my own country, you won't fight for me here." And I mean, he just cut into them something terrible.
Because he had a real. You're talking about the 60s, early 70s. Man, he had this really unique genteel about fairness. I mean, it's highly textured. There's a lot of textures to it, but this real thing about fairness, like in his janaza, you know, he spent 10 years planning his janaza, right?
Oh no, I didn't know that.
And he had a book of how it's supposed to go, and in that book, you begin to see that he wanted people to experience equality at the highest level of expression, which is a janaza. Mm-hmm. Who else's janaza have we seen on television?
Maybe Prince from Morocco when we saw that with the Princess Noor.
It's like literally who have we seen on literally an American Muslim?
No, we've never seen an American Muslim janaza.
And he put every piece of humanity he could on the stage. Mm-hmm. There's a part in episode 6 where he talks about, you know, he's not human. He talks about his infidelities. Mm. And he says these things just so profound, man. It just hits you. A guy says, you know, he said, first of all, he's basically saying, you know, I'm sorry that I hurt these women. And he says, you know what? He said, and I know it didn't make God happy. And you know what he says after that? The guy goes, were you happy? The enemy, he goes, it didn't make me happy.
Mm-hmm.
This is, we're talking about the apex of consumption. You can have everything. And he goes, it didn't make me happy.
So,
It reframes what he wants to do. And he spends his life saying, I've got to make up for that. For the people that I've hurt. You know, I remember when I first took my shahada, brother was like, listen, if you ever do something bad, follow it up with a good deed. I was like literal, Q. I'd be like in the street, man, I'll kill you. But how's your mother? You know? Till I say hi. But you had that, man, and it was real. And it's like, people weren't walking that path, man.
mm-hmm.
People were not walking that path. And, you know, there's a parallel path with Imam Wardi Muhammad, but he's on a different kind of mission. He's not at the international level of Muhammad Ali. You know, I go to this janaza in Louisville, and the scope of humanity is so crazy. You look over there's Minister Farrakhan sitting down, there's the Prime Minister of Turkey standing over there, and it's almost like you're at Hajj. Nobody has
and a lot of white folks.
Yeah, I mean, like nobody has. I want to say. Hold on a minute. There we go. Did I lose you guys for a minute?
No.
No, it's like nobody has preference.
Mm-hmm.
There are people who took the life savings to get a plane to be at Muhammad Ali's janazah.
Right.
They're sleeping around.
Yeah, it was on CNN, ABC, all over.
People who showed up had no hotels. They had no place to stay. And it led to this generosity. Hey brother, you got a place to stay? No. Hey brother, you have a car? No, I'll take you in my rental car. I mean that, and it was like Muhammad Ali. He gets the last laugh.
Mm.
Like he gets the last laugh. We don't.
Right.
He does. This is his final act.
Mm.
And what's his final act? Recognize humanity.
Yeah, someone just texted me. They said that Thurgood Marshall was on the bench of the Supreme Court at the time, but he recused himself. That's why the initial vote was, as they were discussing it, was 0-8. Then when this Supreme Court Justice Harlan, he read some of the Nation of Islam literature and some of the excerpts or passages in the autobiography of Malcolm X, and he then sent a memo to all of the justices, and then it went 4-4. And so they were concerned that if they gave him conscientious objection on the basis of religion, that every black man in America was going to join the Nation of Islam to get out of the war. And so they came up with an excuse, I don't know, to give him an acquittal, to remove the lower court decision. Do you know what that was? What they decided? How they decided to give him an 8? He got an 8-0 decision in his favor.
I would have to go back and do my research, but I'm not 100% on that. I read something about it. I actually watched the show, the movie about it on HBO. It was really fascinating because a lot of it is actually pretty factual.
Okay.
It's really close to factual.
What's the movie on HBO called? As a documentary?
No, it was like a film about it. I think it was the United States versus Muhammad Ali. I have to look it up.
Check it out.
Check that one out because it's well done. Number one, it's well done, and it's not politicized. Like you see the inner workings of the judges' minds going. At some point in time, we have to follow the rule of the law.
And I noticed your comments on One Night in Miami. We'll have to do a whole other show on that one. But I gotta go. I'm getting the hook. But Brother Imam, Sheikh, if you could close us out. You've been listening to Living Islam Today with Qasim Rashad and our host, Preacher Moss, talking about the Universal Title Podcast, The Spiritual Journey of Muhammad Ali.
Yes, sir. What would you like, brother?
A dua?
Okay. I'm not the do I do. No, I'm all right. I'm all right. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Malik yawmiddin. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Ihdina siratal mustaqim. Siratal ladzina an'amta alayhim. Khayril maghdubi alayhim waladdallin. Ameen.
Thank you, my brother. I wish you the best. May Allah bless you for the remainder of Ramadan, inshallah, to close it out. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Brothers and sisters, good to see you, Q.
Yes, sir. All right.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. أشهد أن لا